Okay guys, I'm ready to tear something apart. You know what it's gonna be? A very popular young adult book. A lot of people have told me that they enjoy this book. Nobody's telling me that it's a great book, like nobody's telling me that it is, Book Thief level. Book Thief was really overhyped for me, and I didn't understand why. This one people are just kind of telling me is like on the same level as The Hunger Games for likability. You have to suspend a little disbelief, that's okay. It's just kind of a fun, romp, young adult book. It is... Let's just get right into the review. That book is Divergent. You've probably heard of it. It's going to be a movie, and I suspect it's going to be a better movie than it was a book. I think it will translate well onto the big screen, which is okay. But the book, my brain, I can't. Let's read the back. In Beatrice Pryor's dystopian Chicago, oh, it said in Chicago, I didn't even realize that, society is divided into 5 factions, each dedicated to the cultivation of a particular virtue. Candor, the honest; abnegation, the selfless; dauntless, the brave; amity, the peaceful; and erudite, the intelligent. On an appointed day of every year, all 16-year-olds must select the faction to which they will devote the rest of their lives. For Beatrice, the decision is between staying with her family and being who she really is. She can't have both. So she makes a choice that surprises everyone, including herself. During the highly competitive initiation that follows, Beatrice renames herself Triss and struggles to determine who her friends really are, and where exactly a romance with a sometimes fascinating, sometimes infuriating boy fits into the life she has chosen. But Triss also has a secret, one she's kept hidden from everyone because she's been warned it can mean death, and she discovers a growing conflict that threatens to unravel her seemingly perfect society. She also learns that her secret might help save those she loves, or destroy her. Yeah. Okay, warning right now, this review is gonna be spoilery, because as you know, I tend to spoil books that I didn't maybe like as much, and books that I did like, I tend to leave unspoiled and encourage you to go read. I still encourage you to go read this one, but for the same reasons that I would not read this one, chuckle at it. I can suspend my disbelief pretty well, but it fell off the tightrope about halfway, not even halfway through this book. So let's get my notebook out and talk about this son of a bitch here. This is going to be a little bit random, in a random order. I just kind of wrote as I thought, and I didn't bother to arrange it properly, so I'm sorry if it's a little bit random. My first thought when I was reading this book was that the voiceover movie voice going, "In a world where internet personality tests decide your fate." Because it really is. You take a personality test, and it decides where you should go, even though it doesn't really decide where you should go, because you still get to pick. So the personality test is just to set up that Beatrice is special, and set her apart from everybody else and make her, dangerous. And that's already a little bit face-palming there. But at that point I was still like, okay, whatever, cool, you're suspending my disbelief. Your dystopian future is odd. But we'll keep going. Beatrice joins the warrior caste. I'm probably gonna mostly call them castes because that's what they are, and I'm probably gonna call them by more with the virtue that they represent versus their names, because I can't be bothered to remember the special names that they have. But Beatrice joins the warrior caste. She comes from the super sort of, not super religious, but that's what they seem like super conservative. They caste that runs the politics because everybody has their own place in society, and they are very selfless, and so she comes from that. And she goes into the warrior caste because otherwise this would be a really boring book. I would like to read the book where she went into the one that's that are all caregivers and doctors and stuff, and we just get to watch her live on a farm and do animal husbandry for the rest of the book. That would be hilarious and awesome. Okay, let's just dive right into a big problem that I have with this first book. Maybe more will be explained in later books. I've only read the first one. I don't even know if others are out. If they are, people might already be facepalming at this because maybe more is explained about this in later books. But for now, I've only read the first one, so I'm just going to ask questions and point out giant gaping flaws in the first one in no particular order. The first flaw being it turns out, of course, that she is divergent, that she would fit into more than one category. And we are meant to believe that she is one of the only people in the world right now who has more than one personality type. Okay. Just think about that for a while. I want to know what happened to this world that made them like this, that made them all like fit into these niches. Did somebody put something in the drinking water? Like, I understand why you would want to have the different factions to run things, but how did you get the human beings who are very, I don't know if you've met a human being, but we're complex. We don't fit into just one personality type as much as the internet would like us to believe we do, and Harry Potter and all of those things that put you in categories would like to believe you do, because you really don't. And this is the most blatant about it. And I'm like, what happened to this world that they are all so brain damaged that suddenly they only fit into one personality category? What? Something in the water, that's my theory. The other question I had right away is, okay, she goes into this warrior cast where they train you to shoot a gun and fight physically and be an asshole. And I'm going, okay, well, they're the warriors, they're the soldiers, what are they for? There's nothing to fight right now. It's indicated that maybe there is something like out in the rest of the world, because I guess they're just in Chicago, I didn't even know that. That maybe there's some sort of threat. I think zombies, personally, zombies would be my thought on that. There's some other threat way out in the world that the warriors are like trained to fight. Otherwise, you just have this cast of assholes for no reason that are volatile and may just suddenly decide to just kill you, except for they're all meatheads, so they're not brainy enough to kill you because they only have one personality type, except her and like one other guy. Also, in this, at least in the warrior cast, they go through this initiation rite thing, and it's very challenging, and it's very draining, and it's very dangerous, and people die, which already seems dumb. And then they are ranked, and at the end, and they get to decide, and by their ranking, it is decided whether they will stay in this cast or whether they will become castless, factionless, and just be like living as poor people being garbage truck drivers and, you know, all those terrible jobs that nobody wants to have, like cleaners. What I don't understand is you would think that as these factions, you would want to have as many members as you can. Especially even though these kids might not be ideal for your faction, none of them sucked. None of them were so bad at being warriors that you were just like, yeah, he's a danger to himself and others because of his inadequacy. So why are these kids being sent out? It seems like a waste, especially since it's set up in the book that the culture is upset about these casteless people, and they are a drain on society, and we shouldn't be giving them things. And it's obvious that they would just rather kill anybody who doesn't fit into their perfect little society. But I'm going, but these kids who are in this initiation, they're all fine. They would all make good warriors. You don't need to get rid of any of them. Wouldn't you want your cast to have more members? It's fucked up. And do the other casts do that? Like, if you don't pass Animal Husbandry 101, do you get kicked out? Is that a thing? How do you pass Empathy 101? Just too much apathy, get out. One thing that I noticed about this book, and I'm going to compare it to Hunger Games, they remind me very much of each other. They have a female protagonist who's kind of an asshat. I don't know why that is, but it's a thing. They have kind of factions, although in the Hunger Games it made more sense because it was by economy, not by personality type. And they both have to go through these challenges to succeed at something. And it turns out they're all part of this larger picture. So really they're very similar to each other. And I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me that they're similar. But I will compare them because they are similar. And I think the Hunger Games did it much better. When I was first reading the Hunger Games, I noticed that the the author's writing style seemed very amateurish. Just her word choice, her sentence structure, all of that seemed very amateurish. But it didn't ruin the story for me. It didn't take me out of it too much. I just noticed it. The author of this book, of Divergent, who is Veronica Roth, her writing is very fluid and professional, but her storytelling is kind of bad. Of course, the story has a love story in it. Of course, the Divergent Tris would find the only other Divergent person, and of course he would be a hot guy who would be just broody enough to be conflicted, but just nice enough to not be an Edward level of asshole. And so he's okay, but their romance is just so boring. It's just by the book YA romance. I didn't care at all because it was just boring as shit. I was like, oh, they're together now. I have no investment in their relationship. He's bland. He's bland man. And he's also divergent. Ooh. He can also have more than one personality trait, but apparently he chooses not to. That's just my observation. Is that he's just bland. One thing I did notice in this book, because it's very tough as an author, I will say that the author has set herself up for a challenge, to write people that only have one personality type. Because it's hard to make likable or interesting characters that only have one personality type. And so most of the characters who are not divergent feel more real than her two characters that are divergent, because she makes those two, the main character and her boyfriend, kind of like spazzy. Like, I want to call it bipolar, even though that is not the right word. But like, one minute she will be helping, like some kid gets stabbed in the eye and she just takes charge of that situation, and she's right there and she's comforting him and she's holding him still so he doesn't like hurt himself more, and she's just being awesome. And then later she could give 0 fucks. The amount of fucks she could give are in the negative numbers about other people's pain, and it's like, I understand that you're trying to make her seem more complex, like sometimes she's a caring person and sometimes she lets her warrior side get the better of her, whatever, but it just makes her seem really random. And the guy does the same thing. It's like one minute he's an ass, the next minute he's not. And it doesn't feel realistic. I can feel the author trying to make them stand out and obviously have more than one personality type, even though in reality, the other characters are far more compelling because they're subtle in their differences in the way that they react and everything. Like her friend Christina can be jealous or can be very kind. That's 2 personality types right there, but it's not shoved in your face like it is with the main character, where it's like, oh look, sometimes she's a jerk. Oh look, sometimes she's not. Isn't she complex? I want to know, like, do we find out in later books that everyone is divergent and she is just like, there's this drug that they give them at the end of the book that the brainiac people who turn out to be the bad guys give the warriors to brainwash them and make them go massacre the selfless ones, because the selfless ones are in government and the brainy ones want to run the government. And so they brainwash all the warrior caste and make them go massacre the selfless ones. And everybody's affected except for Tris and her boyfriend because they're divergent. And I want to find out later if they have like brain cancer or something. It wouldn't be brain cancer, but something else that makes them immune to it, because again, this world is so strange that it wants you to believe that people really do only have one personality type and they only fit in one place. At least for this book. I think later books you're going to find out that that's not true, and of course it's not true, but then what the fuck is up with this drug that doesn't affect her because she's divergent? Unless we, I'm hoping that later we find out divergent means something else about her, like a brain tumor. Especially like with there's a bully, the bully character who's a real jerk. He kills people, he stabs people in the eye. At the end, she ends up with him on her like traveling party that will continue into the next book, and she's like, oh no, this guy, he's going to be trouble. And I'm waiting to see whether the author is just going to continue to keep him the same bully character just as a foil for our main on into the next book, or if he's going to develop as a person, which I would much rather see. I'd much rather see a bad guy start to develop as a person. But can he do that? Because he's a meathead warrior type, and that's all he can be. Look, I'm trying to like you. I really am trying to like you, but you don't make sense. In fact, I just wrote that underneath that last thing that I wrote. Your world makes no sense. I cannot suspend my disbelief anymore. I will suspend my disbelief willingly for Katniss's world, which doesn't make a lot of sense either, but it makes more sense than this. At least her world isn't determined by personality types. Although, I mean, obviously in the Hunger Games there are a few very strong themes, which you can definitely tell. One of them being consumerism, greed, the rich over the poor is very bad. The other one, of course, being that forcing children to kill each other is very bad. That one's fairly obvious, but I feel well done in the Hunger Games books. This one, I'm not sure what the overarching message is, except for that Triss is a special flower, and I think we as the readers are meant to relate to her because we all feel like we should be the special one, but maybe because I'm not a teenager anymore, I read it and I'm going, no, I'm one of the other people. I'm one of the schlubs. Does that mean that I have no more than one personality type? What? You know, it's like, you know, every reader, I think, is supposed to believe that they are divergent, but in reality, we're probably not, and so the book is kind of saying, well, everybody else in the world except for these frickin' special awesome people is just one personality type, which makes me think that there's something in the water, like I said before. But this book also tries to throw a really clumsy message about consumerism being bad toward the end of the book, and I just started laughing. I'm just sitting there and I just started laughing aloud. I was alone at the time, fortunately, because I was just like, really? You're gonna try to throw that in there too? And it was clumsy and it tripped all over itself, and it was hysterical. That's all there's the only description for it. So, Divergent. Again, I was surprised by how little I liked this one, because I thought it was going to be another fun romp like the Hunger Games where I would have to suspend some disbelief, but it'd be a great adventure and I really like it. And instead I ended up face-palming and laughing at it more than anything else. I'm waiting to see. I might check out the next one just because I'm curious if the world will ever get fixed, because right now 0 sense is being made. I can't even pretend that it makes sense. So, do you like this book? Why do you like this book? Do you like it better than The Hunger Games? Less than The Hunger Games? Do you think it's gonna make a good movie? I think it's gonna make a pretty good movie because this sort of silliness actually works better on the big screen. People will suspend their disbelief a lot more on the big screen, including myself. So I think it'll make a fine movie, and hopefully it'll make money so that we keep seeing the young adult genre getting noticed, because there are a lot of really good works in the young adult world, but this is not actually one of them. See you later, guys.